What's going on with the Manchester United takeover? It's been over 12 months. Why are the Glazers stalling? We've been hearing stories about Qatar, Sheikh Jassim pulling out. We've been hearing stories about Sir Jim Ratcliffe going from 69, 51 to 25%. Welcome back to a brilliant episode of Football Economy with a special guest, Bilal Yogi. Stick around, we'll be back in 10 seconds to unpack everything. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to MUFC Realist TV, and I have a very honorable special guest joining us in the studio today. This is not a live recording. This is a pre-recorded message for you that's watching this right now. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification button, but please, welcome to the show and welcome to the podcast. Mr. Bilal Yogi, how are you today, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Mick. Thank you for having me on again.
No, it's a pleasure. You had me on your channel. You did an interview. Now I'm just returning the favor.
Thank you so much.
Listen, Bilal, of course, it's Monday today. It's the day after everyone's talking about the Anfield agenda. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about that football because there's two fixtures on that list that comes out when Premier League comes out. For me, as a Patriot Red, it is away at Anfield, at Liverpool, at home at Old Trafford. But you were a part of the podcast yesterday with the post-match analysis. Let's start with this. Jurgen Klopp has been salty. There's been disrespect from certain Liverpool players. But at the end of the day, do you think it was an Erik ten Hag masterclass to come to Anfield and to get a point?
Yes, I do think it was for a number of reasons. Number one being the amount of injuries Manchester United had. Number two, with their main player of Bruno Fernandes being out of with the suspension. And number three, look how thin the bench was. And number four, Manchester United were the away team. It's down to the home team to take the game to Manchester United and basically put them to the sword, which they couldn't do. I think what Erik ten Hag did very well was there's a huge criticism of him at Ajax as well of this, where they used to say he does not have a plan B. And I think yesterday he showed his tactical adaptation of how he can change and how he can adapt to the card that is dealt to him. So I thought it was a very good performance, but they need to build on it. There's no point going and losing to West Ham on Saturday and then you're back to square one again.
True. You mentioned something very interesting. You mentioned about plans, plan A and plan B, and you said there's no plan. But of course, in this podcast, we're going to talk about the sales takeover, the Glazers. What is the plan A? What is the plan B? And where are we at this moment, guys? Before we continue, tell the audience who you are, what you do, and what is the platform. Very much welcome to, promote yourself.
So guys, I am, for anybody that's not come across my work, so my name's Bilal Yogi. I am the founder of the Football Economy podcast, where we kind of cover and take care of everything to do with football and business related issues, stories, and we kind of break them down into very simple terms for everyone to understand. We've covered all the big teams like Everton, who are going through a takeover at the moment, but most of our work in the last 12 months has been around Manchester United and covering this takeover that me and Mick are about to go into right now.
Yeah, we are. We're definitely going to go into it. So pleasure to have you on the channel. So let's kick off this podcast. We're just going to ease into the final crescendo of the topic today. And of course, that you see the thumbnail, Glazers are stalling. And we're going to come to a theory. Just for the reference, for a disclaimer, we are not the news. We just analyze, we report on the news, and we are putting our critical minds together, applying logic and reasoning. We present you one side of the story, the second side of the story at the balance. At the end of the day, how you receive it, that is your truth. That has always been this channel agenda. Bilal, I want to talk to you about the economical impact for Manchester United being out of Europe. We all seen it. We got knocked out from the Champions League. We didn't even qualify from Europe. That means that affects Manchester United's economy. Reportedly, We think it's a loss of 75 million in revenue and forecast. Now, my question to you, how is this affecting Manchester United moving forward? And will this force the Glazers' hand to sell quicker?
I think this is a big problem for Manchester United, who are, if you look over their accounts since COVID, are eating into their cash reserves. So for anyone listening, cash reserves is the cash you have in the bank for day-to-day running, helps with the cash flow. And I think before COVID, it was like 200 million, something like that. And it's down to like 50, 60, or 70. And this forecast, they would have, with the outlay they did in the summer, they would have, in my estimation, hope to have got to at least the quarterfinals. They had a great group to get out of as well. So it impacts them quite heavily financially. Secondly, they've also maxed out on their credit facility, which they had. And thirdly, their loans are up for renewal pretty soon. I think end of next year, if I'm not mistaken, there's a
Yes.
loan recall, I'm pretty sure. So this will affect them because if based on being out of the Champions League, based on them currently being eighth in the league, and let's just say for argument's sake, they finish eighth, they're going to be in some serious trouble. Now, coming to
100%.
your second part of the question is, if this situation would have arisen last season, Mick, and we would have been in the same situation, let's say February, March, where we are now, I think United would have been sold to the Qatari group very, very quickly at that point, because I think it would have been a clean break. What didn't work for the Qatari group was that United were performing very well on the field, which gave Glazers time to breathe and assess their options. But
Yes, that's
now
logical.
now you're in a situation where the screws are
Backs
starting
against
to
the
get
wall.
tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You
think
can
they're
say
in.
that in layman's term, like if I may play the devil's advocate to sort of translate a little bit what you're saying, for people that don't really understand financial terms, it is pretty much you kick the can as far as you could, you hope for the best, but now your back is against the wall. If you look at the current financial state, I mean, what you spoke about, maxing out the credit cards, because basically Glaze has been taking loan dividends on the transfer market, have been capitalizing using a credit card. Last thing that I saw on the last financial report, we utilize Santander Bank 300 million euros in just for the transfer market. So basically, Glazers has stopped taking dividends. It's been voted down, like, back in January already by the board, a vote of no confidence, pretty much, by my understanding. Now, this season around, it's just been a gravy train of, how do I say, we don't have any more money. Banks don't want to give anymore. The main credit holder here is Bank of America that holds the bond, right? And they
Correct.
have said, we want you to repay this debt by the end of next year. So my question to you, if some miraculous reason, which is an idiotic reason, because Glazers needs to sell, like from me and you, we follow the finance, we follow the money. We don't follow what the media is saying 100%, right? If this is my take on it, and I want to hear your opinion. If the Glazers decide to stay in the current state, do you think that they are steering this ship to an administration?
Mick, they can't stay in the current state because they haven't got money to operate at the current state. So that is just
Bingo.
pretty straightforward, right? So what the situation is that they're running out of cash and they're running out of revenue. So even if we take the League Cup as an example, which we've been knocked out of, that's an impact on revenue as well, because if you have home games, you sell tickets. The Champions League, if they got the FA Cup in January, so it's not looking very good. And the other thing, the problem is the Premier League is getting harder and harder to compete in. So you can see
Yes.
Aston Villa this season, who are now competing. So it's not like before where you had 2-3 teams and you could kind of know where you were going to be. If you have a bad season like Chelsea, you could be totally out of Europe, which could impact you. And it's impacting Chelsea, who nearly spent $1 billion.
So in other
So
words, cash is liquidity, cash is king. If you don't have cash in the bank, you're screwed. A lot of people say you can refinance, but I think they've been refinancing. This is the last straw what they've been doing, right? There's no more money to be taken.
you can refinance if you wanted, as an example, just to keep it simple. But the interest rates are really high at the moment.
Yes, they are.
So the worldwide interest rates, if you have a look at them, and the base rates are really high, and they're not going to come down to what they were before COVID in the next year or two. You know, they
So
might
COVID,
halve, but the interest rates.
yeah. So COVID plays a major impact, and plus the current financial world global economic crisis, which is a credit crisis. Banks are more wary. Banks is not going to lend up. We saw when they came out for a strategical review, you had minority investment firms and banks looking to invest, but everyone pulled out, right? For some reason. And this has been one spin after the other, 25%. They were looking for a 25% investment, but nobody wanted to invest. And this has to do, according to my opinion, I'm asking you, is it due to the high interest rates at the current market rate and the global financial crisis that we are experiencing? Is this pretty much the similar like 2008 crisis or even worse?
Yeah, it's a lot worse. And just to come on your point, Mick, regarding minority investors, if you look at what happened with AC Milan when the American capitalist firm came in as a minority investor, they have very, very strict goals and stipulations that they have, that if this isn't where the actual aim is to do a hostile takeover of the club or the company and take it over and sell it on. So I think the minority investment into Manchester United was never an option. And one thing I would like to put out there is, it won't be a popular opinion, but the facts are facts, where the Glazers are, from a business point of view, not stupid operators. Where people
They're
might think
not.
they don't know about football, they're not stupid people. You know,
They
there's
are.
a
You could say you can park that train of thought there. They're not stupid operators, but I would say that if you're a billionaire, you supply yourself with people that advise you, right? That will give you the advice, financial advice and stuff like that. So they could be still a little bit like naive, but you surround yourself with people that give you advice, and you could say that they were never in charge of Manchester United on the front foot. They were always sitting in the back room, appointing the people to run the business for them, like Ed Woodward and Matt George, which failed, right? So it
yeah,
was for them was
absolutely.
an investment, yeah. But they were
It was
still
just
involved in
purely,
the financial decision to say we approve this, we approve that, we approve this transfer, right?
we approve this transfer, we want this sponsorship, we want to increase this revenue, we want to do this, we want to do that. So when it comes to, from a business point of view, a minority investment from their point of view was not possible. I think they've always wanted some sort of sale or an investment into the club where they can have some sort of control, or they can sell out at a really high 5x, 10x value.
But this is nothing new. Like they went to, I think it was Aries. They went and asked for a minority investor, and they looked at it and they said no. That was like 2-3 years ago. So that
That
minority
was right,
investor
yeah.
has always been there for them to buy out the remaining siblings, right? So this is kind of relating. Is the same sort of recycle news, but now they're putting it on Ineos 25%. So okay, we have unpack that a little bit to sort of explain the reason, why the Glazers need to sell, right? Because a lot of people have fear. They say Glazers will never leave, but finances, according to me, they don't lie. If you look at the American investment with the Buccaneers, the same business model has been applied to the Buccaneers: credit, 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 right? So Bilal, just to summarize this first question, though, to knit it together. Basically, you kick the can as far as you can. Your back is against the wall. The credit crisis is there. You have no cash. You have no liquidity. The balance scorecard books, if you look at it, the debt is higher than the profit revenue, right? And the FFP comes in and look at it, and basically Manchester United is screwed if we don't fix this, right? There needs to be balanced.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to be balanced, and like you've said, just to summarize this whole section into simplify it, the Glazers are running out of cash. They are not in a position to kick it any further down the road. They cannot refinance. Well, it'll be very difficult for them to refinance based on the interest rates that are in the world of finance currently, and will be for the next 2 years. So the only way for them to grow this club and even get it punching to where it needs to be is whether either they put some money in, which they've never done, or somebody else comes and puts money in, which I'm sure we'll touch upon now.
Interesting. Or another option, and this is the I would say that surprise moment of this podcast, of this show, that it's been sneaking under the radar, that we want to discuss to you fans and whoever's tuning in. And this is pretty much, why are the Glazers stalling? Why hasn't the sales takeover been taking place? We've seen 100% takeover bid from Sheikh Jassim 92 Holding Foundation. We've seen Sir Jim Ratcliffe restructuring his deal from 69.51 to 25%, but there's no decision. Media has been talking imminent. Here we go. It's happening on Monday. It's happening on Tuesday. It's happening Friday next week, next year, or perhaps never. So it's always come down to the boiling point that I want to bring to the stage, Bilal, and this is the one that's brooming here in the background, because there is a decision imminent on the new 80 club European Super League that would scrap the Champions League. This is a proposal that's been sneaking in the background, Bilal, and this is the ruling that's going to take place this week. Could this be what the Glazers been waiting for? Could this be why they haven't sold to anyone as of yet? Because barring that you describe the current financial situations, barring that they always been lusting for this Super League, do you think that they've been hanging on for this final verdict that's taking place this week in order to make a decision?
Mick, yeah, when you sent me this last night and I had a read of it, you are totally correct when you're saying that this has gone under the radar. Could this be a tactic to keep them here for longer and open their revenue streams up? Yes, it could be. It could be. But I don't think it will be because, for example, let's say on Thursday they're allowed to start this new 80 team
Mm.
Super League. I'm assuming that UEFA will appeal it, try taking it to court. There'll be a lot of legal processes to go through, which would probably delay it. It won't be as
Yes.
straightforward as on Thursday, there's a new 80 team Super League, and next season this starts. Even if it was to start, it's not going to be next year, it might be in 2 years' time
Yes.
because it has to go
Yes.
through a process.
And the same thing comes with the shirt sponsorship with Adidas. That doesn't really kick in until 2025. So the money doesn't really apply until then. And the same
Mm,
principle with the new Europa Super League. Let's just revamp the story here. I'm just going to read it out. I'm not going to
absolutely.
display it on the
Absolutely.
screen. As a revamped idea of the failed Europa Super League plot is being led by sports development company A22 Sports and will be heard in a court this week as the bid to get the project off the ground. A new proposal to establish European Super League faces D-Day in the court this week. 15 judges at the European Court of Justice are set to rule on an attempt to smash UEFA's jurisdiction over European game on Thursday. We're talking this Thursday, and this time the plan is to ask up 80 of the continent's top clubs to join the revolution. And the clubs they are talking about, right? This is very interesting. You know, it's the nightmare before Christmas, according to what this article is saying, for the Premier League, La Liga, and everyone else. And pretty much it contains Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Spurs. It is what it is, but they are not giving away. And the ones that are leading this, do you know who that is? This pushing
Go
for
on.
this. It is basically Real Madrid's president.
That's right,
What's
yes.
his? Yeah, and
Valentino
Barcelona.
Perez.
Perez, Florentino Perez, and Bartomeu, isn't it? Bartomeu from Barcelona, and basically, arguably to say that Champions League, it's kind of changing its format, right? It's been there for quite a while, but Premier League is kind of the Super League of Europe at the moment. This is where the revenue is. This is where the best team is. This is where TV money is, and this is where the best players and coaches are at the moment right now. It's a very competitive league. On the other hand, you look at Serie A, La Liga, it's dying. It's kind of dying in TV sponsorships. It's not as exciting. And they are kind of a little bit broke at the moment. If you look at the financial situation, they didn't really survive COVID properly, if we may say so. So they're the ones been pushing for it, you know, in my opinion. And they haven't really given away. So I see that this ruling, I don't really know the law, but by everyone that signed the contract are still obliged to follow through, by my understanding. So they cannot really get away with it. We're talking about Manchester United and everyone else.
Yeah, and I think what they've done with this is they've one thing that was missed upon the last Super League, a great point was the Premier League team, all the teams were not looking to break away from their current uh, local league, their own leagues. It was just to replace the Champions League. And here, where it will get very interesting is, for example, one, will this format have a relegation and promotion? Because the last Super League did not have that. It was a set of teams that stayed in this league. And secondly, if it is approved on Thursday, how UEFA, who have a lot of financial power, how do they combat this and how do they try to stop this, which will then prolong it, in my opinion.
100%. I mean, it's basically, if I continue reading this article without displaying it on the screen, if you can listen, A22 is the organization that wants to take away the UEFA's authority to punish club from competing in rival tournaments. So this is basically their rival tournament, right? And if the judgment goes their way, it's likely to be remembered as the watershed moment of the game. But then remember, they don't ask the people, what does the people want? Football is a consumer's game, right? Do we really want that, right?
Absolutely. I'm just going to use an example, Mick, for the listeners as an alternative sport. In cricket, the biggest franchise league is the IPL, which takes place in India. And once the IPL started, there was an attempt to create a few breakaway leagues at that time. I'm going back nearly 10, 12 years ago. These leagues never really succeeded because what happened was governing bodies put bans on players. Television brought it started to get really messy. It went to court, and eventually the smaller leagues, the breakaway leagues, died out. And like you said, number two, is there an appetite from fans for a new league? The Champions League has a lot of heritage. It has a lot of history. It has a lot of iconic moments. People like the format. They like the music. It means a lot on a Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday when the games happen. Is there an appetite for fans for a new European Super League?
Well, the Premier League latest deal is worth about 6.7 billion, right? And we see that it's going to change next season, just to sort of revolve a little bit. But if this comes through, what A22 is pushing, I mean, we are looking at massive increase. We're talking about mega bucks here, right? We're talking about over 6.7 billion. And you're talking about TV rights to Sky News, BT, and they're going to outbid each other. You got to start introducing the body cams, the three, the goggle glasses, what do you call it? These VR glasses, what people have been promoting.
And the headsets.
The headsets. And this, for me, is now tying back into this technology and pieces, tying in back into this one. This is the moment what people have been forgetting about. We were hit by this Europa Super League and we were protesting, but it's not going away. Apparently, it's back here. It's going to be ruled by 80 club European Super League. And I believe that this is kind of a little bit what the Glazers been waiting for.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the money's more, right? It brings in more revenue.
100%.
This will save. United is a big pull.
Yeah, this is a lifeline saver for Real Madrid. This is a lifeline saver for the broke clubs. I might say that definitely Barcelona is in financial tatters as well. Manchester United is on the brink for going towards administration if we don't sell. We need to sell. And I see this as just being a poker game from the Glazers side, right? But the hand has been shown. The hand has been shown, right? So
yeah,
can we make a sort of argument here without being speculative, or we are being sensationalist? Like, why has this gone under the radar? Why is nobody talking about it? We are now sitting here talking about right now as a hypothetical theory why the Glazers are holding on.
I think just regarding the Glazers and why this could be a poker game, I think the reporting on the whole takeover has been really poor and really unbalanced, and it's been reported mostly by football journalists who are reporting this like a transfer. For example, final negotiations. This Monday
Yes.
we're going to get, and this
Yep.
isn't really like that.
It's
It's more.
it's just a matter of fact, not when. It's about no. What did he say? It's not a matter of fact of it's gonna happen. It's when it's gonna happen. When it's no.
Yeah,
I kept forgetting the terminology.
yeah. If it's going to happen, is when is it going to happen? And the thing is,
It's
this
gonna
is
happen.
if I explain this for your viewers based in the UK who will have, when you buy a property, it goes through a legal process with your lawyer, and you're going to assess the building. You'll assess so many things. Things go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and that's what is happening. But where the whole thing has got out of control is how it's been reported. So, for example, a lot of aggregator accounts will say this Monday Jim Ratcliffe takes over, and then the other accounts pick that up and start saying yes,
It's
this Monday,
aggregation.
but it can't. Yeah, it can't be Monday because of it's a PLC. It's the way it has to be reported. It's the way it has to be put
Brilliant.
across. Secondly, just I have on our own podcast followed this so intensely, and bar one or two journalists, most journalists are so lazy in the reporting that they've not even done their own research on
They
how the
haven't.
process actually works. So
Works.
people are really ill-informed, and then fans get their hopes up, and when it doesn't happen, they get upset, and there's a backlash.
And they get this blue tick called by credible journalists as well. So a lot of fans, a lot of people, a lot of readers, if you control the information, you control people's behavior. And a lot of people say, no, I don't believe it. This comes from Mike Keegan's, this comes from Ben Jacobs, this comes from Ornstein, because they're seen in the public as credible journalists. But what you said, they're sports journalists. They're not business experts, right? So that's kind of leads into my question. I mean, that I've been talking a lot about this media's role in this takeover that confuses the fans. And, I like to call it out for a spade, because at the end of the day, they have editorials, they have to sell newspapers, they have to put food on the table for their families. But what they don't, what they're not are is Manchester United fans. And they don't really care what they put out there. There's no responsibility or accountability. So why do you think they've been driving this agenda?
Purely for clicks and purely for hitting targets. It's just really pretty straightforward as that. And most journalists that are covering this, that are writing about this, are basically quoting each other. So Talk Sport will quote the Sun will quote Talk Sport, vice versa. Then, and then the aggregator accounts pick it up. The average fan on this does not understand how this works. So then think, Monday it is, Glazers have gone. Monday comes and nothing happens, and it's just a circle that keeps going round.
But there's certain process that needs
Mick,
to take
can
place.
I just come into this 1 second? Sorry. There's also just so the fan can understand this. Everton are going through a similar process right now with 777 Capital, where they're going through a takeover. Look at the coverage on the Everton takeover, and look at the coverage of the Manchester United takeover, and it's
I didn't even know there was a takeover there with Everton.
Yeah, so Everton are going through one right now. It's actually it's at the Premier League stage where it's very advanced. They could actually go bust if this does not go through. They're in big trouble, and no one's covering that as much. I speak to so many YouTube channels that cover Everton for our own podcast, and we've been talking about this on our own podcast since the summer. But if you look at the comparison of coverage, like you said, most people don't even know Everton are going through this, and that's because Manchester United drive awareness, clicks, coverage, and it helps the journalists hit their targets.
Excellent that you mentioned that, because I've been doing this over 200 podcasts, providing Neon's balanced, right? Because it has to be balanced, right? And for me, it's always been 100% full sales takeover. I cannot lie. I am 100% takeover. For me, it's been far enough. Glazers been here for 18 years. We haven't gone anywhere with Glazers, right? So they need to go. And if you think that 25% is going to solve anything, and that's my next question to you, do you see? I mean, you understand finance, and some people don't. And the thing is, they think that, oh well, it's called divide and conquer, right? again, it's called divide and conquer. They try to spin the story that 25% will be all right, right? But you keep forgetting that who's still in the backseat? It's the Glazers.
Hmm.
Bilal, 25%. Is that going to solve the problems of the club's finances? Or will the 25% just pay off the Glazers?
A 25% only sale does not resolve anything whatsoever.
We're still
Let
going
me
down the
just
cliff.
clarify this. A phased buyout does solve the issue. Number two, so these are two separate things that I'm going to touch upon. So if the Glazers say we're only selling 25% and that is it, I agree 100% with what you said, Mick. It resolves nothing. It puts you back to, you'll be in the same situation in a year's time where you need to raise more money, and it doesn't really make any difference.
But this 25%, does that tie into the result of the ruling of the Super League? It makes sense then if you connect your logic to say, well, depends on the verdict. Maybe we can take this phased buyout. Maybe we can take this Sir Jim Ratcliffe's 25%, and with this extra cash, then we can gradually phase out. That could be a plausible solution. But right here, right now, is what we said. If this Super League is happening, it's not going to happen until next year, 2 years in planning, right? So that's just a smokescreen, according to my opinion, though. So 25% will not solve it. If we continue this rate, because there's certain information, what I gather, that you know he's a minority investor, and why didn't the Glazers go for a minority investor with all these investment firms that came in and had look under the hood when it was a review, right? So it comes down to something that I want to bring to the station, something that I've been talking about at the end of the day, Bilal, because you know me. I've been doing this with a critical eye. I criticize the media. I look at it from the both sides of the story. I have my network, but the thing is so toxic within this fan base to even tweet about it, to even talk about it, because you get shut down, right? Some people call you ITK. Some people call you shut up, this, that, and that. But at the end of the day, every single journalist in this case is an ITK, in the know, because they've been pulling information from somebody in the scouting department in Manchester United. It has nothing to do with the sales takeover, rather than speaking to the people that are in this deal, right? We're talking about Ineos. And Ineos, on the other hand, has been appointed their external PR team to handle all this PR. Now, Bilal, I did a piece on this in May. I did a podcast on this in May. And I've been saying this all along. I want to bring this to the table because I was not the only one. This was also reported by Jack Otway from the Express. Right? I want to bring this to the stage because he said that Manchester United takeover Sir Jim Ratcliffe could be a smokescreen in Jassim's boost. And there's always been a feeling. Jack Otway wrote this May 12th. May 12th. I will post this article in the video description as well, so you can go and check it out for yourself. But it's always been a sense that there's only been one bidder in the process. Rain Group was there to design this shadow bidding process to get those high roller, oil sheikhs into the bid. Because if you look at it, the evaluation of the club, according to Forbes, is only 4.8 billion. This whole blind takeover poker game has been just to get these oil-rich state countries to put a bid in. So they attracted them, right? So 92 Holding Foundations kind of felt a feeling, according to this article as well, hey, we are bidding against ourselves, right? And they always believed that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was kind of a smokescreen or a prop to use that against them. But at the same time, since you have your own PR team and consultancy that is leaking information constantly to the press, every day, every week, we hear something, Ineos this, Ineos that. Ineos will appoint this guy, he will sack this guy, but you can't do that if you don't have the keys as of yet, right? So it's all media driven, right? But what benefits are you actually getting from being attached to this PR coup, right? Nobody really knew who Ineos was a year ago until this came to light that we're bidding, Nobody really understood who Sir Jim Ratcliffe was until he came into the light. And nobody really understands why he's gone from 69 to 51 to 25. So for me, I put my two and two together. I go back into my archive, I go back to my articles, and I say, well, maybe this is something. Maybe it is a smokescreen. Can we say a prop, right? Because the whole shadow process is to get as much money for the Glazers that are currently broke. So this 25% does not make any sense to me if you look at the finances, right? Of course, if it's a phased buyout, fine. If this Europa League comes through tuition, that's fine. But currently, it's not. Do you believe that this could be something in what Jack is saying and what I'm thinking as well? Because the media has been driving this agenda. Like, there's one story that's leaking out, and it's apparently coming from the Ineos side. Like, oh, they're coming into on the work on Monday. They're coming, but from a business perspective, it does not work like this. You have to still pass the director's fitness test. There's transaction that needs to be made. You have to show to the board, to the Premier League board, that you have no involvement in other business sports operation. And by the way, you cannot take a club on debt.
If we look at it in a black and white point of view, you're 100% right. Yeah, what I think has happened, in my opinion, is Sheikh Jassim has left his bid on the table because he feels that he's bidding against himself, because nobody else is bidding 100% for the club at the moment, right? So he's like, we'll give a number, $6 billion. We'll call it dollars because it's in the New York Stock Exchange, so we'll do it for dollars. $6 billion, take it or leave it, it's there. So he doesn't feel he needs to raise his bid because no one else is giving $6 billion right now, right? On the flip side, I think where credit has to be given, because I mentioned this a few times on my podcast and I couldn't understand this at the time. I was like, I don't understand why Jim Ratcliffe how Jim Ratcliffe is going to compete with the Qataris, because he hasn't got the finances.
No,
right?
he knew he could not compete. As soon as Qatari entered, he could not compete.
He could not compete.
So therefore,
what he did, sorry, Mick, what he did do really well was he stayed in the race. And what he did was,
why did he stay in the race?
Because I think he wants to purchase the club.
He wants to purchase any Premier League club. He made it very clear if you go back to his interviews. But the question is, you got to ask the hard, practical business sense, PR, branding question, which I do. I come from that world as well. Why would you stay in the bid, and why would you make yourself relevant and constantly leaking out information to the press? And this is tying in together because this is positive free PR. That's what it is. This doesn't mean that you are actually taking over. It doesn't mean that it is advanced. That's the thing. I have spoken to numerous people. I'm not going to mention my sources, my names, but they're saying they're getting information from the Ineos PR camp and some, intermediate solicitors. That's what they're getting the information from. Now, you can argue to the point they haven't signed an NDA, but you can make up stories left, right, center to spin the advantage to you. That's the thing, right? Agents do that all the time in the transfer windows. They utilize media to spin the positive story about their client, right? To create general interest, to boost up the valuation of the sales price of a ex-player that are representing. So I'm just putting my logical hat on. I'm not saying this is the news. This is not. This is the way I see it from my, Mick Ruby's world, right?
You could there's no reason why you cannot be right. Yeah, this potentially could be exactly what you're saying as well. What works in your favor is that the delay of this being announced. And if you remember correctly, I think it was September when it was reported by James Ducker. I think it was that Ineos Ineos are going to take a stake in Manchester United, and the meeting is this coming Thursday. And what he did was he pieced two things together. What he said was the meeting was happening anyway on that Thursday because it'd been scheduled already, the shareholder meeting, and he just said, right, this 25% is happening, and there's a meeting being set for it which hadn't. And as you can see now, this has been going on for so long. But in my honest opinion, I think it's not over until it's over. I'm not saying Qataris are going to win. I'm not saying Jim Ratcliffe's going to win. I'm just saying until it's announced, we don't really know which direction this is going
That's
in.
it. That's it.
I have my own inkling. I have my own views on it. But from a black and white point of view, we don't know which direction this is. They could pull the whole plug on the whole thing.
They could, and I always keep my powder dry, knowing what I know. I'm not going to be suicidal to go mine, because so many people said something. Rio Ferdinand was shut down. You know, I'm brave, but I'm not suicidal. That's the thing, right? But according to my opinion, and my analysis, and the people that I've been speaking to, this race is far from over. And I always say to people, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, and that's opera, right? What we're trying to do here from an educational purpose, to give you an eye opener, right? This is not news. This is us giving you bits and pieces, clues and everything. And the way you can interpret it, you know, use your logic, sense and reasoning, and to understand why is it the way it is. Why is it being treated like a transfer window? You know, Fabrizio Romano comes in and do a tap in, like, you know, to say it's going to happen. Personal terms, not a problem. Here we go. Because everyone that wants to be attached to this story gets to win the Pulitzer Prize, whoever breaks it. And that's it. It's called self-entitlement. Guys, this might be a mad theory, but I think we're onto something, Bilal, here, because I don't understand why people are not reporting on the Super League, and that ruling is taking place on this Thursday.
Mick, the Super League, the problem with that was, I think the timing of the article wasn't very good. It went a bit under the radar because of the big, if it was reported on, let's say, today or tomorrow, it probably would have more impact. Because of the huge fixtures over the weekend, it just kind of went under the radar a little bit.
Final question, though, before we wrap up. Do you see this far from over? Do you see that there might be a chance for a final crescendo? We're talking about PR, right? You mentioned it before. 92 Holding Foundation, they felt like they're the only ones that it's been reported. Maybe it's a PR trick from their side as well to say we're out. It didn't say out. Means we're out of the bidding process. We have put our final bid on the table, take it or leave it. We know, Glazers, that you need to sell. We know that you're broke. You know that this is our table. Good luck with that. Here we go, right? And the whole thing is being called financial review. So basically, all the bidders are waiting for the feedback. It's not an announcement. It's nothing. You know, if you read the sales price over takeover process carefully, everyone is waiting for feedback at the moment. So basically, Glazers are waiting. I think the Glazers are waiting for the final verdict on Thursday to give feedback. I think this is an icebreaker, Bilal. Call me crazy, but let's see.
We'll find out on Thursday.
Yeah, but do you personally believe that Sheikh Jassim is out, or do you think he's just looming there in the background? That you said his bid is on the table. It's a card game. It's a billionaire squid game. Who blinks first?
I think this is just my opinion. Look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I think
sure opinion.
They quickly realized they were bidding against themselves, and they had a set number that they were willing to go at, which was, we'll call it the $6 billion. They've left it on the table, and I think that is it. I think, in my opinion, I think what will happen is Manchester United will
eventually
Jim Ratcliffe will be sold. I think that's my opinion. I think it'll be a phased buyout. And I think the reason it's taking a very long time is because of certain goals, certain situations, certain scenarios. For example, if Manchester United finish in the top four and we want to sell out next year, what will the cost be? If Manchester United get relegated, what will happen? If Manchester United X, Y, if the Super League happens, what will the value be? I think that's where it's at. And I think
that's where it's at. I think so too. I think so too.
I agree with your point. I think 25% will not do anything whatsoever. But I think if it's 25% now, 35% next year, over that period, that could work. But I think the most important thing that fans need to understand is stop spending time on Twitter and saying when somebody with zero credibility is saying on Monday he starts work, when legally, like Mick has said, he cannot start work until he goes through a full process, which will take about 6 to 8 weeks. He's not going to come in next week and then Manchester United are going to have a big January window. This is going to be a very long-winded process. Whoever comes in, whether it's Sheikh Jassim, even if he comes in tomorrow, There's a long-winded process that you have to go through. And regarding another stumbling block, which Mick, I'll just touch upon
Sure.
for Ratcliffe side might be how they deal with his French club. I think it's Nice, is it? It's Nice,
Nice,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. And the Champions League issue. But I'm pretty sure City have got a similar problem because their Spanish club, I forgot the name of it now, the one that's at the Genoa, I think it's called Genoa, who are the top of La Liga. If they end up in the Champions League and City have got also similar problem. But it's best to wait and see what happens, and whichever direction it goes in, let's hope we all get 100% buyout, because I'm a Manchester United fan as well, and we get somebody in charge that can actually run the club and put it in a position where we can compete and not be in a situation where we are just playing catch up every summer.
True then. Bilal, I think we're running out of time, but just want to summarize and just want to give you fans that are watching or viewers that's watching, my personal standpoint. This is my opinion, only my opinion, and I stand by my opinion. I don't believe in a 25% it's going to do anything. I'm always been Glazers out 100% full sell only. If it's a face buyout, let's say if it's a Sir Jim Ratcliffe that will get it, I will criticize it, because I want to know, and I think the fans want to know, what is the roadmap from here? Is it a guarantee that you will take over within 3 years? We want to know. But right now, we don't know. All we know right now is it's been 1 year in the making of this sales takeover, and it's a normal process. It takes about 1 to 18 months to sell this magnitude of a business transaction. It is a business transaction. It's not a transfer transaction, just to make it sure. But as you said, Bilal, financially speaking, I think we are coming to a very close crescendo. I don't think it will be, as what you said, they're not going to come in and operate as of January. There might be an announcement in January, or it might be something, but we are 2 weeks away. And what you said, what matters is that we as a club turn the page, that we as a club get that financial support that we need, barring that our footballing operation generates enough money for us to be sustainable. We know that. But we need that little bit of a sugarcoating daddy to come in and help us, because we've been rotten in that stadium and the training ground XYZ. There's
Mick,
been a lot of
can I just add into that? I think just 2 points before you wrap up. The first one is I don't believe Ratcliffe is stupid enough just to buy 25% and just let it be. No. He's never bought a minority investment, and
I don't believe he's stupid enough just to give his money away to the Glazers. Here you go. It's a loan. It's a PR spin.
It's a PR disaster to buy 25% and be in bed with the Glazers. Number 2 is that I feel eventually I'm just using Ratcliffe as an example here. If he is to purchase the club at 25%, if it doesn't have a roadmap to a majority investment of 69 or 100%, it's a pointless exercise whatsoever. And I think, and the third point I want to add in is that there's a fascination around fans to have a Middle Eastern owner. If you look at Chelsea, who never had a Middle Eastern owner and one of the most successful clubs in the Premier League over the last 20 years, it's about having the right owner. It's not about having a right owner can come from Australia, it can come from the US. It's about having the right owner. So we need to stop having this fascination that it needs to be Middle Eastern.
The right owner that loves the club, it was Abramovich, Chelsea. He was a dream owner. He loved the club. He wanted to win. He was a mad football fan. And unfortunately, we know what the story was, 100%. But right owner that loves the club, that wants to invest, that wants to make us successful, and that's what we want to do.
Mick, if you remember Blackburn when they won the Premier League, they were owned by Jack Walker. He was a local fan. He was a Blackburn boy, a local fan, and he competed with Manchester United. Took a very small club, Blackburn, are probably the size of Wigan as a football club, and got them to win the Premier League. So it's not about having a Middle Eastern owner we want an owner that does the best for the club, wherever he is from.
Fantastic. I think we're running out of time. It's been 50 minutes. It's been total football, total economy talking sense, logic, and reasoning, guys. But we want to hear from you guys that's watching in. Leave your comments in the comments section. Do you agree what we are saying? Do you have another theory, another opinion? Please leave your comment in the comment section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. And also go and check out Bilal and his podcast and his channel. Bilal, once again, where can people find you, just for the reference? I will leave the description, all the details in the video description as well. But final word from Bilal as well. Big up.
Yeah, firstly, thank you for once again for having me, Mick. And guys, you can find us across all social media. Just type in the football economy. Please give us a follow and a subscribe and help us grow. And look forward to doing this again very soon.
Thank you so much, Bilal. Just to summarize, the core of this agenda story was to actually discuss the Glazers stalling, potential stalling, why they're stalling, and there is a final ruling of the 80 team Euro Super League in Europa this taking place, and a verdict this coming Thursday. Is this the event that the Glazers has been waiting for? We will see. We will see. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Big up for Bilal Yogi, and stay beautiful, people. Be nice to each other on the socials, and Merry Christmas. Thank you for watching. It's been Mick Ruby and Bilal Yogi talking football economy. Thank you. Bye for now. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching MUFC Realist TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on the socials.